Let's move on to other stories now. China's President Xi Jinping has secured his third five-year term in an unprecedented move to tighten his grip to become the country's most powerful leader since Mao Zedong. Nearly 3,000 members of China's rubber-stamp parliament, the National People's Congress, voted unanimously in the Great Hall of the People for the 69-year-old Xi to be president in an election where there was no other candidate. His power was already extended last October when he was reconfirmed for another 5 years as General Secretary of the Central Committee of the ruling Communist Party. A week after the violent kidnappings of 4 Americans in Mexico, investigators are still working to piece together how and why the abduction took place, even after a cartel apologized for carrying out what one victim's father calls a senseless crime that left 2 Americans and 1 Mexican woman dead. Though authorities have not publicly named any suspects, an apology letter was issued by the Gulf cartel, which is believed to be responsible for the kidnappings. Meanwhile, hearses transporting the bodies of 2 Americans left a forensic medical service morgue in the city of Matamoros, bound for the United States. Mexican officials gave the bodies of the 2 victims, identified as Shahid Woodard and Zindel Brown, to U.S. officials in Matamoros on Thursday afternoon, and they were taken across the border into the United States. Elsewhere, several churchgoers in Germany are picking up the pieces after a gunman opened fire at a meeting in the northern German city of Hamburg. 7 people were killed and several others injured. Police say the gunman acted alone and that the reasons behind the shooting are still unclear.
Several people have been killed and seriously injured in a shooting at a Jehovah's Witness church in the northern German city of Hamburg. Police officers entered the building while emergency personnel ushered people away from the scene. Local media say residents in the northern Alsterdorf district of Hamburg had received warnings on their mobile phones of a life-threatening situation and that streets had been sealed off. Spokesperson of the Hamburg police, Holger Veren, says the perpetrator of the shooting could potentially be among the dead.
The police were called around 9:15 p.m. They were told that shots had been fired in this building. The police were relatively close by and then went into the building quite quickly. The officers who went in found people who may have been seriously injured by firearms, some of them fatally. The officers also heard the shots from the upper part of the building and went upstairs, where they also found a person. So far, we have no indications that any perpetrators fled. We now have to carry out the evaluation of the crime scene. At the moment, we have no clues about the victims. All we know is that several people have died here. Several people have also sustained various degrees of injuries, and they have been taken to hospitals. Beyond that, the work at the crime scene isn't going on now. At the moment, we cannot give any specific information on this. We have no indications that a perpetrator is on the run, but rather indications that a perpetrator is possibly in the building, possibly even among the dead.
This eyewitness narrates the incident, saying he heard about 12 continuous gunshots.
We
heard gunshots. I know what gunshots sound like. And there were 12 continuous shots. I thought it was something at the construction site here, but then it's supposed to have been somehow at the patrol station or next door at the Jehovah's Witnesses. We took some pictures and saw people being taken away in black bags. That's all we saw. We didn't see any perpetrators or anything like that, but only what happened here shortly afterwards.
Meanwhile, forensics police examined the scene of a shooting in the early hours of today. The mayor of Hamburg, Peter Schenscher, extended his deepest sympathy to the families of victims. He assured that forces are working at full speed to pursue perpetrators and clarify the background. Germany has been shaken by a number of shootings in the last few years. In February 2020, a gunman with suspected far-right links shot dead 9 people, including migrants from Turkey, in the western town of Hanau before killing himself and his mother.
Still ahead on the program. Georgian President Salome Zurabichvili hails the true power of people after the withdrawal of the Foreign Agents Bill. Details in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. An attacker opened fire in central Tel Aviv in a suspected terrorist attack, wounding 3 people before being neutralized by Israeli police. Large numbers of police and medical workers rushed to Dizengoff streets in the heart of the city where the incident occurred. A street-side restaurant was left empty after customers fled the scene mid-meal. There were no immediate details about the circumstances of the shooting, though police said initial signs were that it was a terrorist attack. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has labeled the terror attack amid rising unrest in the West Bank. The Prime Minister expressed concern over the shooting and hoped for a speedy recovery of the victims.
There's been another terror attack in the heart of Tel Aviv. Tonight we send first of all our hopes and our wishes for the speedy recovery of the wounded, and we strengthen the security forces and the police who are fighting terrorists this night and every night. We will continue to build our nation, to deepen our roots, and to build our common future as brothers and sisters.
Well, staying with Israel, United States Defense Secretary Lloyd says he is deeply concerned about Iran's advances in uranium enrichment, while his Israeli counterpart Yoav Gallant says it's necessary to take all measures to prevent Tehran from obtaining nuclear weapons. The U.S. is Israel's closest ally, and both countries are increasingly concerned about Iranian military activities in the region and its nuclear program, which Tehran says is wholly focused on power generation and other peaceful projects.
Today, we find ourselves at a critical point in time. In the coming period, we will need to make pressing and important decisions.
Issues affecting Israel, United States Defense Secretary Lloyd says he is deeply concerned about Iran's advances in uranium enrichment, while his Israeli counterpart Yoav Gallant says it's necessary to take more measures against it. And to other bilateral issues, Saudi Arabia and Iran have agreed to resume diplomatic relations and reopen embassies. Iranian state media said that Ali Shamshakani, head of the Supreme National Security Council, met his Saudi counterpart Masaid bin Mohammed Al-Aban in China, where the agreement was made. Saudi Arabia severed ties with Iran in 2016 after Iranian protesters stormed the Saudi embassy in the Iranian capital following the execution of a Shiite cleric in Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, the Foreign Ministry of Syria and its close ally Iran welcomed a thaw in diplomacy between Damascus and regional states in the aftermath of last month's deadly earthquake. At a joint news conference in Damascus, Syrian Foreign Minister Faisal Mekdad said that Syria aimed to normalize relations with regional states. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amira Dulahian said Iran also welcomed any initiative for talks aimed at reaching an understanding in the region, including meetings of 4 countries, Iran, Russia, Syria, and Turkey, aimed at resolving Syria's crisis. Still on bilateral relations, but this time in Australia and India, both countries have agreed to strengthen a broader economic partnership and to boost their defence ties. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the increased cooperation between both countries was necessary amid an increasingly uncertain global security environment.
Prime Minister Modi and I discussed the increasingly uncertain global security environment and committed to strengthening the Australia-India Defence and Security Partnership to address shared challenges and work towards an open, stable and prosperous Indo-Pacific. We also agreed on an early conclusion of our ambitious, comprehensive economic cooperation agreement as soon as possible, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to finalise that this year. This transformational deal will realise the full potential of the bilateral economic relationship, creating new employment opportunities and raising living standards for the people of both Australia and India. Prime Minister Modi and I also discussed the urgent need to address climate change and support the implementation of the Paris Agreement. I am also pleased to report that officials have made significant progress on a new migration and mobility partnership arrangement. This arrangement will promote and support the mobility of students, graduates, academic researchers, business people and other professionals from the emerging and high-tech sectors now and into the future, while also enhancing cooperation on issues pertaining to irregular migration.
A U.S. Senate committee has harshly criticized rail operator Norfolk Southern and pressed it to back safety reforms after a devastating derailment of a freight train carrying hazardous materials in Ohio. During a 3-hour hearing, senators from both parties said Congress must pass rail safety reforms and pressed Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw to endorse improvements. Mr. Shaw apologized, pledging to improve safety and address impacts, including thoroughly cleaning the site. He said it had already committed $21 million to the community as a down payment.
I want to begin today by expressing how deeply sorry I am for the impact this derailment has had on the residents of East Palestine and the surrounding communities. I've been to East Palestine many times over the past month. I've talked with the leaders, the business owners, the school officials, the clergy, and others throughout the community. They've shared their stories and their concerns about the health of their families and the future of the community they love. I am determined to make this right. Norfolk Southern will clean the site safely, thoroughly, and with urgency. You have my personal commitment.
Wall Street said we're not making enough money. Cut workers, cut workers, cut workers, even if it endangers safety. My question to you, very simply, sir, will you lead the industry in doing away with precision scheduled railroading? That concept.
Senator, in December of last year, I charted a new course in the industry. And I said we're going to move away from a near-term focus solely on profits, and that we're going to take a longer-term view that's founded on our engagement with our craft employees who are so critical to our success.
You talked about covering the needs of the people of East Palestine. Does that include paying for their health care needs? All of their health care needs?
Senator, we're going to do what's right for the citizens of East
What's right is to cover their health care needs. Will you do that?
Everything is on the table, sir.
Let's get back to what we're here for, is try to solve the problem in front of us. What caused this?
Senator, the NTSB report is still ongoing. I'm not waiting to act.
It wasn't lack of personnel, right?
There was no indication that it was lack of personnel.
Or that they did anything wrong?
The NTSB specifically said there's no indication that the NS crew did anything wrong.
Okay, when we find out what happened, let's try to fix it.
Thousands took to the streets to celebrate after Georgia's parliament dropped plans for a foreign agents bill that had triggered a major domestic political crisis and threatened to derail the Caucasus nation's bid for closer ties with Europe. Lawmakers voted against the legislation in the second reading today after the ruling Georgian Dream Party pulled its support for the bill.
Young generation, and most of the young generation today from Georgia live overseas. We live in European countries, in the United States. Of course, we want Western future, and we will never ever get back to anything, never back to USSR. This is not our choice. So today, the young people make their choice. That's why we stand here. So we are Europe.
I'm very happy here because we are fighting for our independence, for our becoming the member of the European Union, and we will continue. This law is not the law that we need. So that is the happiest moment in my life, that we have won, but we have a long way to fight to become the member of the European Union.
It's definitely a big day for European Georgia, for the population Georgia, whose overwhelming majority shares European value, and our aspiration to Europe cannot be challenged. This was the proof of the last 2 days. If anybody has a questions what it was for, we can see the news today. Russian propagandists, starting with Karasin, Zatulin, and all others, are unhappy, and all our European partners are happy with the decisions that Georgian government has to make because of the pressure of the population. Our future is European, and nothing can challenge that.
Meanwhile, Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili has congratulated citizens over this victory, saying that it proves the power of true democracy.
Hello. First and foremost, I want to congratulate the whole of society on this first victory of its kind. I welcome these correct steps taken by the government. The fact that they announced the withdrawal of this draft law. They should take into account the true power of the people. What we've seen on the streets of Tbilisi, that unity. If we're a democratic country, it shouldn't be that the government and parliament do not take into consideration the voice and the will of the people.
Let's take a look at one of our top stories today, that shooting in Germany, and we have the VOA's correspondent Anna joining us now on the program. Great to see you again today. Another day, another shooting. Give us an update on the gunfire, that occurred at a Jehovah's Witness hall in Hamburg earlier today.
Okay, well, we know that one Ukrainian is a victim, and this is what I can say from here, from Ukraine, from the ground. Basically, definitely a terrible event happening in Hamburg, and people dying. Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed that one Ukrainian was there, and one Ukrainian was wounded. according to the information from them, she is getting all needed support. This is what I can confirm from here, from Kyiv.
We know that the gunman is a former member of the religious community, aged between 30 and 40, according to the authorities. What more are the authorities saying as to the identity of the suspect?
For the moment, the investigation is ongoing, so we cannot really have the full picture of what's happening. But definitely, we know that the person wasn't identified. And of course, the investigation will show what was the reason, if it was a religious reason or it was any other reason of what had happened and what the person has done and why this happened in general. So let's wait. I think that we should better wait for the full investigation to be completed and official statement to be out.
So what's the German government saying as regards gun control and reforms?
This is something that unfortunately happens around the world, and unfortunately, this is an accident, a precedent. But it's not something. I guess it's not something that could lead to any let's say deep changes in the laws. Of course, this is one of the precedent, and this is something that would be considered in the future for the general in general. But this is one of the precedent. Unfortunately, this is happening time to time, and unfortunately, this is something that it's something up to probably to the police and to the interior ministry to get the control of, and to get the control of the people who can be risky and who can be dangerous in these particular times.
And let's switch now to the war in Ukraine. A lot of people, I imagine, are without power. The president has said that teams are working round the clock to restore power to energy facilities because of the attacks the last 24 hours that has knocked out critical infrastructure. What's the situation on ground now as we speak?
As we know, as we talked yesterday, the massive attack happened, and unfortunately, some areas of Ukraine remain under quite a difficult aftermath of this attack. Particularly eastern regions such as Kharkiv and the city of Kharkiv and Kharkiv region still have troubles with energy. And also Zaporizhia, as Zaporizhia had 2 attacks yesterday. So the massive one that happened over the night and in the morning, and then also another one in the evening, and thousands of people remain without energy supply, without electricity. In terms of Kharkiv, situation is better than in Zaporizhia, but and water supply was back. But still, energy supply, electricity is still quite a problem. Also, public transport which is electric, is not working for the moment. In Kharkiv, if we talk about central part of the country, Kyiv region and central regions as well, there are some problems with the energy supply as well in these areas, but situation is getting better, but still it's not perfect, and still local governments are doing everything possible for repair works to be done as soon as possible, and people getting all the needed supplies back. So it's not critical, but at the same time, it's not, the situation is not perfect.
Right. So can you give us an update on the situation in Bakhmut as well?
Sure. Situation in Bakhmut remains extremely difficult. Ukrainian authorities confirmed that Ukrainian army remain in the city. However, there are certain advances of the Russian forces in some areas. We are hearing about some success of the Russian forces in the east part of the town, and apparently Ukrainian forces are trying to move some lines of defense. But again, this is something we cannot verify independently and confirm officially. And it's according to to the representatives of Ukrainian forces who remain on the ground. But according to Ukrainian officials, situation remains extremely difficult and is changing every minute. For the moment, Ukrainians keep the defense and keep the control of the city, of the main part of the city, let's put it this way. But again, this can change any time, and unfortunately, situation in Bakhmut is extremely dangerous and extremely risky and extremely difficult. Так, я зараз виходжу, да. So Bakhmut remains the hottest spot for this point of time, and we're keeping our eye on the official statements because we understand that it can change, and updates can come anytime.
Right. A lot of world powers, have promised to help Ukraine through this difficult time as, civilians bear the brunt of this continuous attack from Russia. They've made promises of aid, food aid, or what have you, promises of military aid. But speaking more broadly, what exactly does Ukraine need at this time?
Well, as the Ukrainian top officials and President Zelensky particularly confirmed recently, the most important is military support for this point of time. Humanitarian support, of course, is as important, but military support is crucial, and military support is something that might, especially for this upcoming months, is something that could change the situation in the country, in the region. So I would say that military support is priority number one. Humanitarian goes in line, so we cannot put it as second priority, of course, but this is something that should go in line with the military. But military support is something that could change, the things on the ground and situation on the ground.
So the EU is promising, money to countries that are trying to help Ukraine in terms of, the military aid that you've said. So, but they're finding it, difficult to get all these across. Do you think this will have an adverse effect on the way that Ukraine is able to defend itself and actually, get out of this very tricky situation on the long run?
Well, hopefully, the upcoming months would be so. The help and the support for the upcoming months would remain the way it is and would kind of be finalized, because we know that the process is ongoing and it's confirmed by both European officials and Ukrainian officials. So the process is ongoing. What's going to be happening afterwards and in the future? I think that we should wait until this next month to see what the situation is on the ground and on the battlefield. So battlefield would decide how all this will be ongoing. But as we are hearing from U.S. officials, from European officials, Ukrainian allies are saying that they will be with Ukraine for as long as it takes. So hopefully this would be the case. Hopefully for Ukraine, of course, because this is what Ukrainians are hoping for, expecting. And again, according to Ukrainian officials, this is what negotiations is about.
Anna, thanks again for this update, and do continue to keep safe.
Thank you.
And when we return on the program. Stars get their skin red carpet ready for Oscars awards. Details in a moment. Welcome back. The UN peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, MONUSCO, says suspected allied democratic forces have killed at least 38 civilians, injured 10, and abducted several others in 2 separate attacks in North Kivu province. The deputy spokesperson, Farhan Haq, addressed reporters in New York on this issue.
And the Ugandan Armed Forces. Our peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, MONUSCO, reported that suspected allied democratic forces killed at least 38 civilians, injured 10, and abducted several others. This happened in 2 separate attacks in Mukondi and Mausa, located some 20 kilometers south of Beni in the North Kivu province. Joint operations by the Congolese and the Ugandan armed forces are ongoing in this area. Our colleagues at the peacekeeping mission condemn in the strongest terms the brutal attacks against civilians and call for an immediate cessation of hostilities.
Elsewhere, in a largely male-dominated sector, Michelle Gwatimba runs a small farm north of Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. She's not only blazing a trail for women, but also provides a lifeline for those who survived violence. Take a listen.
As the sweltering morning sun beats down on them, about half a dozen young Zimbabwean women stack green tobacco leaves into sheaves, while another group, some with babies on their backs, load the harvested crop onto a tractor.
We realized that in the settlements around the farm, where we get most of our staff, there was a lot of GBV. We'd be hearing a lot of stories. There was a lot of women who would then come to us asking for food or for shelter or somewhere to run away from. Because I don't know, an idle mind, is a devil's workshop. So we ended up just employing all of these women until we then my team and I came up with a strategy that says in every project that we do, either it's tobacco, either it's the soybeans, maize, whatever we are doing here, we try our very best to make sure that the staff complement is at least 75%, and the 25% is the men for the heavy lifting.
Gwatimba went into farming after leaving a lucrative job in Harare as an IT technician in 2019. She found being one of few women in the tobacco industry intimidating, but says it is rewarding. Speaking at the opening of the tobacco auction floor, chairperson of the Tobacco Marketing Board, Sir Patrick Devenish, said the rise of women in Zimbabwe's tobacco farming industry has been great in improving the quality and quantity of the crop.
Are very good at paying attention to detail, and more ladies are taking up farming.
In more than 2 decades since the chaotic land reform program that dispossessed thousands of white commercial farmers, Zimbabwe is witnessing a new wave of young black farmers taking up tobacco farming, one of its biggest cash crops. According to official figures, it constituted about 12% of the southern African country's total exports in January. Most other growers are contracted by private companies to produce the crop and receive seeds, fertilizers, and chemicals to help boost output.
Elsewhere now, from facial workouts to laser peels, celebrities will be turning to a range of skincare routines to look their best for the Oscars red carpet on Sunday. Dermatologists and other beauty teams are busy preparing their clients ahead of Hollywood's top ceremony, the culmination of the award season. Among the regimens, celebrities like actor Kerry Washington and comedian Chelsea Handler partake in a face gym, which describes itself as a home of facial fitness. And the stars aligned for Versace as the Italian fashion house presented its fall-winter 2023 collection in Los Angeles. The open-air show featured a host of top models who strutted onto the catwalk on the rooftop of the Pacific Design Center in West Hollywood as the sun began setting over Tinseltown. Models struck the runway dressed in a black pencil skirt and power-shouldered blazer. Black featured heavily in the collection alongside pops of orange and pink. The show, which was held just a few days ahead of the Academy Awards, was attended by crowds of celebrity guests. The ever-expanding world of fashion. That's it on the show today. Thank you for watching. I'm Joker Rogers.